Okay, away we go. So we will start at the bottom of Yud Ches Samad Beis, Tanu Rabbanon. Tanu Rabbanon B'Shamay Oyrim, Lo Yimker Adam Chemsa L'Nachri. So we're taking a small break from Hilchos Shabbos, and we're going in to Hilchos Pesach. And there's relevance because we discussed yesterday that Beis Shammai holds that you're not allowed to send anything with a goy that someone could think you sent him with, and that the goy is doing your malacha on Shabbos. So there's a similar halacha regarding Pesach. A person should not sell his chametz to a goy, unless he knows for sure the goy will use up his chametz before Pesach. Because if not, the Lakute Rashi here says, Sheyaveh HaPesach, Sheyichala Kodim Shaveh HaPesach, because Savri, the Shammai holds, mitzvah olav levairi min ha'olam, v'lo sheyeh kaim. He needs to know, the owner of the chametz needs to know that his chametz will be completely destroyed. Others learn the reason why Beis Shammai has this akpada is so that it shouldn't, your mechir shouldn't be a harama. In other words, it should be a fake sale just to make it look like it's not in your control, but it's really yours. And by making sure that the guy is going to consume it completely, that would show that in fact you did sell it and you have no intention of getting it back. The Wasilayim, which is what we do, is calls manshim mutalaichai. As long as you're allowed to eat chametz, you're allowed to sell it. You're allowed to sell it till the last minute. Reb Yehuda says, extending the comment that Beis Shammai said. Let me just stretch the camera a little bit. Kuta chabavli. If what you were selling was kuta chabavli, the chomini kutach and any other kutach, that's also limker lamajoyim kodim of Pesach. That's also to sell even 30 days before Pesach. Now, in order to describe what a delicious dip the kutach is, I'm just going to read it from the ArtScroll. It's a dipping sauce made of the finest ingredients: sour milk, moldy bread crusts, and salt. Is anybody getting hungry? So it's a tart, sour type of dip. But being that it's a dip.
Yosy, by 1 o'clock, that might sound not bad, actually.
But being that it's a dip, it's something that it takes a very long time to consume. It's not something that you consume directly. And since it lasts a long time, you have to sell it at least 30 days before Pesach. What's the significance of 30 days? So Rashi, so the point is, if you sell it before 30 days, then the chiyuvim of Pesach have not been chal on you. And therefore, you're unrestricted in what you could sell and who you could sell to. But once you're within the 30-day window of Pesach, where the season is here and the halachas of Pesach are upon you, there you have to make sure that anything you sell will be completely consumed before Pesach. Now, are you allowed to feed dogs on Shabbos? This is ha-kelev. It's not even your own kelev. So the halacha is you're allowed to feed dogs on Shabbos. And the reason why you're allowed to feed dogs on Shabbos, one of my favorite reasons, is the dogs did us a favor when we left Mitzrayim, because it says we are trained to say that every time we see a dog that we're afraid of. And in the schus that the dogs didn't bark when we were leaving Mitzrayim, they got the bracha of lakelaf tashlichon. Anytime we have a piece of nevela, we give it to the dogs. Why? Because they were good to us, so we're going to pay them back, and we always feed them. That's one of the reasons why we always feed dogs. But the reason why we always feed dogs is it's like Tar Chaim, because dogs often are hungry, and people don't often feed their dogs properly, at least in those days. So everyone's allowed to feed dogs, and who did other animals that are hungry, you're allowed to feed. So if you're feeding a dog comes into your chutzner and you're going to give it food. Problem is, if the dog takes that food out, now it makes it look like you're being mishtamish with balei chayim, you're a machamer. Mechamer means you're loading up a donkey with product and you're having the donkey carry it for you. If the dog takes it out, you have a problem. So the Gemara, it's not a problem. You're allowed to serve the dog something to eat in your chutzner, and you expect the dog to eat it right then and there. But not levi yatsa, if the dog took the food and ran out, ain't is kakanla. You don't gotta run after the dog and say, hey, get back here. You don't have to worry about it. Similarly, if you have a hungry guy who comes into your yard, you're allowed to give him food. The chutzner, assuming that he's going to eat it there in the chutzner and not carry it out. Again, because if he carries it out, it looks like you asked him to do it. Not like the yatsa, if he took it and he left, you don't have to run after him. Once I tell you about the dog, you're allowed to feed. Why does the Christ have to tell you a separate case with the guy? So a dog you have to feed because it can't fend for itself. But a guy could fend for himself. He's a human. You might not be allowed to serve him. But you're allowed to serve the guy too. There's a very interesting Tosfos on here. Let's just see Tosfos. Just get this in the scope. Okay. So Tosfos says, B'Shabbos, afilu b'Shamai, even according to b'Shamai, you're allowed to feed a guy. You don't have to assume the guy is going to carry it out, and then according to b'Shamai, it poses a problem, because the norm is if someone's hungry and he's coming to you for food, he's going to eat it right there on the spot. It's only food that you'd be allowed to give to a guy in the chutzner. Giving the guy any other object, asur would be asur. Afilu Beis Hillel, even according to Beis Hillel. The Lashari Beis Hillel alaber of Shabbos. Beis Hillel only allows you to load up a guy right before Shabbos, as long as he's out of your house by the time Shabbos starts. But on Shabbos itself, even Beis Hillel holds you're not allowed to give something to a guy, because when he carries it out, people are going to think that he's doing it for you. How could you bechlal feed a guy on Shabbos? Since you're not responsible to support the guy, because you're meeting hachla based the moitzi aniyas hanachri, and nachri is excluded. So therefore, litzar, it should be usher to give a guy food. You're not allowed to put food in front of a chay on Shabbos, because you're not responsible. Hachanami here too, by a guy, it should be usher. And we all know you're not allowed to have a guy eat by you on Yom Tov, because you're not allowed to cook on behalf of a guy on Yom Tov. It's very relevant. Where if someone is becoming a ger, so they try to eat. They eat out as guests often by Jewish families. On Yom Tov, they're not allowed to eat by Jewish families because technically, as a non-Jew, a Jew is not allowed to cook for a non-Jew on Yom Tov because we're not responsible to feed them. So if that's the case, how come here you're allowed to give a guy food on Shabbos? Yishleimar even the mefarnes and aniyei nachrim and aniyei Yisrael mishum darkei shalom. Since because of darkei shalom, we actually do give tzedakah to goyim, just like we give tzedakah to Eden. Therefore, choshev ksas mezaynesav alecha, and that's why you're allowed to feed a guy. Lenin iser toyach shvus derabanan. So this is only a shayla tircha on Shabbos. It's a shayla derabanan. It's not cooking on Yom Tov. It's just being a triach yourself. And we waive that shvus derabanan of darkei shalom to help feed a guy. But as far as cooking on Yom Tov for a guy, you would not be allowed to cook on behalf of a guy. I don't know if you're aware, Tzvi Tress created a very big fund now, millions of dollars he raised, and he publicized it in Lakewood that people who are suffering and they don't have parnasa and they need food, they should reach out to this fund and they'll give them money. And there's a group, a very anti-Semitic group in Ocean County in Jersey that's always looking to attack the frum community. They got wind of it. And they got all of the goyim in New Jersey that needed money to apply. And because as a registered charity, he's not allowed to discriminate, they basically diluted the whole tzedakah and all the money went to non-Jews. And it puts me into a very tight spot. He's trying to figure out a way around it. He's looking for a good lawyer. Shlomi, maybe you could help him. Okay, Taner Rabbanan. Lo yasker Adam Kelav Lanachi be'erev Shabbos. A person should not rent his Kalim to a goy on Erev Shabbos. But the Daled Vehei, if it's on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday, mutter, then it will be mutter. Kayotzeboy. Similarly, ein mishalchin igrais biyad nachi be'erev Shabbos. You're not allowed to have a goy deliver a letter for you, and we're talking about where you're paying the goy by the hour. So you're not allowed to say here on Erev Shabbos, please deliver this for me, because we're afraid that he's going to end up delivering it on Shabbos, and you're paying him for Shabbos. But if you send him on Wednesday or Thursday with that letter, mutter, then it would be mutter to hire a guy to deliver a letter for you.
Yosy, sorry. Wouldn't it depend on how far he has to travel?
It should, but at the end of the day, even if he's traveling on Shabbos, but you didn't ask him to travel on Shabbos, then
but you didn't ask him to travel on whether it's Friday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So you never asked him to travel on Shabbos. But if you know on Thursday it's going to take him 3 days, it should be the same thing.
So that's a very good point. I think if you send it to him on Friday, then it looks like you're actually sending him to work on Shabbos. If you send him earlier, then it doesn't look like you're sending him to work on Shabbos. And of course, you cannot tell him he's got to deliver it right away. He has the right to take his time, and if he can't get to it before Shabbos, he can wait till after Shabbos. So you're not asking him to work on Shabbos at all. This is merely a question of visuals. It doesn't look like you're making him work on Shabbos. So if you send him on Friday, it doesn't look good. But if you send him earlier, then it doesn't look like you're sending him to work on Shabbos.
Okay.
But your point is extremely well taken, and the Gemara is going to fine-tune it even further based on how far it can get. So you're asking the right question because the Gemara is actually going to dig deeper into this. Okay, so let's see what it says. But the Dal Behe Mutter. Amr Lav al Reb Yosy Chaim, or Amr La al Reb Yosy Chassid, and some people say they were the same person. Never was there a time where you found one of their letters in the hands of a Goyish delivery person. And Rashi says, Shaloi Yelichenu b'Shabbos, because they never wanted that any one of their letters should ever be delivered on Shabbos by a Goy, even though the Goy is doing it on his own. They never wanted that to happen. Taner Rabbanan. Here it gets a little complicated. Ein mishalchen igris b'yad nachri erev Shabbos. You're not allowed to send a letter with a Goy to deliver it on Erev Shabbos. Ela im kein koitzitz leidam. So now we have a new heter. If you're not paying him by the hour, but if you're paying him by the job and you tell them, I'm giving you $20 as a flat rate to deliver this letter, so then you're allowed to send it Erev Shabbos, because clearly the guy is working for himself. He's not working for you. Now we know that even if it's a kablanus, from our Mishnah we know Beis Shammai doesn't allow that, because it could be perceived as if the guy is working for me on Shabbos. So this katzitzas damim that works if you make up a set price for the guy to deliver the letter, that would only be effective according to Beis Hillel. According to Beis Shammai, you could never do that because it always looks like the guy is working for you on Shabbos. So let's start again. Now that we know which Beis Hillel that we're talking about. Ein mishachin igris biyad nachri erev Shabbos, ela imkein koitzitz loydam, unless there was a fixed price made up for the job. Beis Shammai, regardless, kadeshi agilavesai. The only time you're allowed to send anything with a guy, no matter what the situation is if the guy will have it fully delivered before Shabbos. And therefore, there's no option of someone thinking that the guy is doing work for a Jew on Shabbos. So we're assuming I'm sending something to the neighboring village, as long as he can get to the first house that's closest to the entrance of the city. By Shabbos, that's good enough, which is a weird timing, and we'll learn more about it shortly. For the Gemara, we're saying that the only time, even according to Beis Hillel, that you're allowed to send a guy with a letter is if you make up a fixed price. For the Gemara, if there's a fixed price, so then why does Beis Hillel limit it to only if the mail carrier can get to the house nearest to the wall? Once I made up a fixed price, it should be unrestricted. Basil holds once you're out of my house before Shabbos, I should have no problem at all. So why is there this extra restriction that the guy has to arrive at the house Samach L'Choyma? Amar B'Sheish Hachi Kamer. This is what Basil means to say. So if you're a koitzis, just like in our Mishnah, there's no restriction. If you make up a specific amount of money to deliver the letter, flat rate, then you're allowed to send it with the guy. And as long as the guy leaves your home before Shabbos, that's 100% mutter. However, if you told the guy you're paying him by the hour, now you have restrictions. So if it's loy katzatz, Beishamai says that the guy has to finish delivering the letter before Shabbos, and that's whether it's katzatz or not. Beishamai doesn't make that distinction. But Beis Hillel, in the case of loy katzatz, Oimrim, Beis Hillel holds that if you did not make up a fixed price, then you have to make sure that the guy will reach the house closest to the entrance of the next city to where you're sending this letter.
Sorry, so Yosy again. So that's only for Friday, though, right?
That's only for Friday. That's right.
Okay.
Fact to Gemara, but it doesn't make sense because the Reisha says ein neshalchen igeres biad nachri erev Shabbos. So it says that you're not allowed to send it at all. Elam ken koitzitz. So if you say you can't send it at all, elam ken koitzitz, how could you backtrack now at the end of the brisa and say you could still do it as long as you reach the house closest to the wall? When right at the beginning, you said that if you're not koitzitz stavim, you don't have a fixed amount, you're not allowed to do it at all. So are you allowed to do it or not? So it depends. If there's a kviyas of beidar b'masa, then you're allowed to send it as long as he reaches the first house in the city. But if there is no kviyah beidar b'masa, then without a fixed price, you're not allowed to send it at all. So right now we have no idea what this distinction is. Kviyah dayar, not kviyah dayar. So first I'm going to tell you Rashi's pshat, which to me is difficult to understand. And then I'll tell you the pshat of the other Rishonim. Rashi's pshat is, Rashi assumes, who are you sending letters to? In those days, who got letters? The only person that people would send letters to would be the mayor of the city. And the letter that we're talking about here is a letter that someone is sending to the mayor of the next city. So the Gemara tells us, if the mayor has a fixed residence in the next city where he's sending this letter to, then you're allowed to send this letter with the guy as long as the guy reaches the first house in the city. Well, what's the significance of the first house in the city? If I understand, if the halacha would be that it has to get to the mayor's house before Shabbos, but that's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says as long as it gets to the first house of the wall. So Rashi explains, since the mayor has a fixed residence, if the guy merely delivers this letter to the first house that he hits when he gets into the city, we know that they'll be able to find the mayor and give it to him. So it's good enough if he gets to the first house in the city. And that's why if the mayor has a fixed residence in the city, then even if it's loy katzatz damim, you're allowed to send it with the guy, provided that the guy can get to the first house in the city. But if there is no fixed address of the mayor in the next city, then the guy is going to be forced to look around to find the mayor, and that means he's going to be working on your behalf on Shabbos, and therefore it wouldn't be allowed at all unless it was katzatz damim. So I didn't understand it so good. A couple of reasons. First of all, every letter that's sent is sent to a mayor. And the second thing I don't understand is just because the mayor has a fixed address, so now I can send it to the first house and it'll get to the mayor, it's unusual. So the other Rishonim learn much simpler, that Beidar doesn't mean the mayor's house. Beidar means a post office. If there's a post office in the city and they have a postal delivery system in the city, so then all the guy has to do is get to the next city and drop it in the first mailbox. So when it says getting to the first house, it means getting to the first mailbox. As long as he can get it to the first mailbox in the city, but before Shabbos, then we'll allow him to do it. And we know that the local postal system in the city will take that letter and get it delivered. But if there's no postal system in the city, so then the delivery person, the guy that you hire, will actually have to go to the house of the recipient on Shabbos, and that's not allowed. So that, to me, makes a lot more sense. It's merely a shaila of whether or not that city had an internal postal system or not. So, just to summarize.
Yossi, it's possible it's one of those small little towns where the mayor and the postal office is right above each other.
That's right, and the courthouse and the judge
and he's the postman.
That's right. Good point. To us, it's funny in small. When you're driving through upstate New York, you find that. But every shtetl probably was a small city in upstate New York. Good point. Okay, now it makes a little bit more sense. Okay, so that if you're kaitzitz damim, according to Basil, there's no restrictions, like it says in our Mishnah. As long as the guy is out of your house before Shabbos, you have no problem. If you are not kaitzitz damim, you're paying him by the hour, then if the city you're sending your letter to has a postal system or has a mayor who lives in the post office, then you're allowed to send it with the guy as long as the guy will get to the first house in the city before Shabbos, because then it will be enough to be delivered and the guy won't have to be running around on Shabbos. But if they don't have any infrastructure and the guy that you're sending with is going to have to walk around the city finding the recipient, then it would be usher to send it with the guy on the Erev Shabbos. Zok to Gemara Vayter, now we're discussing going on a cruise. Tanu Rabbanon, Ein mafligin besfina pachash migimel yomim kadim Shabbos. You're not allowed to go on a cruise within 3 days of Shabbos. And there's actually a question what within 3 days mean. Does it mean you got to go by Tuesday because Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are the 3 days? Or do you have to leave by Wednesday because you have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday? Or can you even leave on Thursday? Or Thursday is the day that's restricted. Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, because those are the 3 days. So it's a question what it means within 3 days before Shabbos. But whatever the case is, whatever the 3 days are, you're not allowed to leave on a ship within 3 days of Shabbos. Why aren't you allowed to? And it's a whole big shaila amongst the Rishonim why you're not allowed to. Rashi says the reason why you're not allowed to, let's have a look, see. Rashi says over here, mafligin. Rashi doesn't say. Rashi actually does not say why it might be usher to travel on the ship. Tosfos says over here, ein mafligin b'sfina. Let me just push my finger up a little bit. Okay, so Tosfos says, afilu chutz l'tchum usher. It's usher. Afilu toich l'tchum, even if it's in the tchum, so there's no problem with traveling out of the tchum. It's going to be usher. Mishum shot. It's like swimming. You're not allowed to swim on Shabbos, so that's why you're not allowed to go in a boat. So that's the svara of Tosfos. It's like swimming. There are those who learn that.
Sorry, Yossi. I thought swimming has to do with like wringing out your clothes. Right?
No, I think swimming is also because we're afraid you're going to build a boat.
I thought it's because you're squeezing out because of sleep. That you might squeeze out your bathing suit or something like that. Which would make no sense.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
Now, the other reasons that are brought down in the Rishonim are, one of the Rishonim learn that when you travel, usually till you get used to being on a ship, for the first 3 days, you're very seasick. So if you travel within 3 days of Shabbos, then your first Shabbos that you spend on the boat, you're going to be miserable. And it's going to ruin your earning Shabbos. And therefore, you're not allowed to go on the ship unless you'll be fully acclimated before Shabbos arrives. That's what a 3 day.
So with these modern day cruise ships, which feels like you're in a city, it doesn't even feel like you're on the ocean.
They have what are those? What are things called that keep the boat stable?
Stabilizers.
There's a fancy. What's that? Those two wheel scooters that are very expensive that people do tours on.
Segways.
They have something. Gyro something.
Gyroscopes.
Gyroscopes, right?
Gyroscopes.
So these ships have gyroscopes in them to keep them stabilized. I mean,
today, though, you need to acclimatize to the coronavirus on the cruise ship.
So there's that. That's one reason the Rishonim say. Another svara that the Rishonim say. I think the Balamora says that whenever you go on a ship, it's possible that there'll be some type of life-threatening situation that will require Chilul Shabbos. And because of that, you shouldn't go on the ship within 3 days because it's like you're setting yourself up to have to come to do Chilul Shabbos because you're putting yourself into a situation where you could come to an emergency that would require Chilul Shabbos. That's why within 3 days, you shouldn't do it. If it's earlier than 3 days, then you're not directly putting yourself into a place where you might have to do Chilul Shabbos to save you on Shabbos. So that's the different shittas of why you're not allowed to go on a ship 3 days before Shabbos. So Ema Fliegen Besvina Pachas Megillah Milyon Kodim Shabbos. Hamed Vamamur. Under what circumstances do we say that it's also? With Dvar Harishus. That's if you're going to a Dvar Harishus. Havel Dvar Mitzvah Shaperdami. But for a Dvar Mitzvah, you're allowed to travel on a ship even within 3 days of Shabbos. And the Ramah says that going to earn a living, going to make parnasa, is called a Dvar Mitzvah. And other places can say that if you're going to visit family, that's also called a Dvar Mitzvah, because you're making peace in the family. So it's very hard to find something that's only a Dvar Rishus, because most things would be considered a Dvar Mitzvah. I guess unless it's just solely for relaxation, if that's the only reason why you're going, then that might be considered a Dvar Harishus. I mean, I guess nowadays anybody going on a cruise ship is going only for vacation. But if you're going to enhance your Shalom Bayis, so that's also a Dvar Mitzvah. It seems like it doesn't take a lot to cross the threshold from Dvar Harishus into a Dvar Mitzvah.
These rules were written by the Ontario government for essential services.
Very liberal indeed. Okay. Aval Dvar Mitzvah Shaper Dami. But if it's for a Dvar Mitzvah, you'd be allowed to go on the ship. Now, Upoisekimoi Almanas Lishbosh. You do have to tell the captain that I want to stop before Shabbos. But Ve'ena Shoibis, even if the captain ignores you, it's not a problem. Divi Rebbe. So you're getting on your cruise ship on a Thursday afternoon, and you tell the captain of the ship as you're getting on your Princess Cruises ship, or your Disney ship, your Carnival Destiny, you tell the captain, over the way, we're going to stop on Shabbos. And the captain looks at you like you're crazy. What? And then you just continue on board. So as long as you let everybody know that from your perspective, you'd be happy to stop on Shabbos, you don't have a problem. You don't even have to say anything at all. Now, how about Mitzur Latzidon? Mitzur Latzidon is less than a day trip. And people used to want to travel from Tzur to Tzidon on Fridays because Friday was the day of the market in Tzidon. So a lot of people, it was common that people would want to travel from Tzur to Tzidon. So the halach is you are allowed to go a filo be'erev Shabbos mutter because it's very possible to reach the destination on time. Okay, let's go on. Tadarabam. Ein tsarin ala yoresh shel nachrim pachas migil miyamim kaidim l'Shabbos. Now we're talking about when the Jews were capturing non-Jewish cities, so they would create a siege around the city. So the Raja tells us they shouldn't start a siege if they wouldn't go on a cruise. In other words, within 3 days of Shabbos. Again, the same svaras apply. Either you're putting yourself into a makom sakana, because sometimes when you're doing a siege, you're actually going to start fighting a war, and that leads to Chilul Shabbos due to Pikuach Nefesh. So you shouldn't set yourself up to do that within 3 days of Shabbos, or because it ruins your Einik Shabbos, because it's very scary when you start a new battle. Once you're in the battle already, it's not so bad. So again, you don't want to be within the first 3 days of battle on Shabbos. However, once they started the siege, and you don't stop, and you take down your enemy till the bitter end. So the pasuk says, "Rak eitz asher teda kila eitz maichahu oisei sashkes." The only type of tree you're allowed to destroy around your enemy's city are non-food trees. You can cut those and you can build a siege around the city. That you're fighting with, ad ridita, meaning when you fight, no giving up. You siege and you rip that city apart to the bitter end until you are 100% victorious. Amar Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Nahagin Hayu. So Reb Shimon ben Gamliel was saying that when they gave in their whites to the dry cleaner, they gave it in 3 days before Shabbos because they knew it takes longer to launder whites than it does colors.
Sorry, Yossi. Is that just going back? Did we determine if it's Wednesday or Tuesday, or we never determined that?
No, it's a Shiloh to Rishonim, so I don't have the final answer for that. Amar Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Nahagin Hayu, Tanya. We could, if you want, we could take a quick look in the article. I think the article brings down the different shittas, but he doesn't pass. He just quotes that there's different people who holds of different timings. Oh, I can't see it now. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. Amar B'Shimon Gamliel, Noi Hagan. Tanya, this shows you if you learn Gemara, you're protected from getting scammed by your local Chinese dry cleaner. Tanya, Amar B'Sadik, Kach Hayim Hagay, Shal Beis Rabbi Gamliel. This was the minute of the home of Reb Gamliel. Shal Yunoisnin Kli Lavan L'Chayves, Gimel Yomim Kodim Shabbos. They would give in their whites to the launder 3 days before Shabbos. Utzvuin, but their coloreds, afilu be'erev Shabbos. They would give those to the dry cleaner even on Friday. Umidivreim lamadnu, and from what they've done, we learn something practical about life. Shalavenim kashim lachapson yoshim natzvuyim. That it takes longer and it's more difficult to wash and to launder white clothing than it takes colored clothing. Abai was giving in his colored beged to the washer, to the dry cleaner. Omer Lei, he asked the dry cleaner, Kama boy, how much will you charge to wash my colored shirt? Omer Lei, Kidachira, I'm going to charge you the same price that I usually charge you for your white shirts. Omer Lei, Abai said, don't scam me. I learned Gemara. I know that's not true. The Rabbanan in my Gemara already told me that only whites are expensive. I should not be paying the same price for my colored shirt as I pay for my whites. So you didn't fool me. Amar Abaye, Haiman the Yoiv Monel Katsra, whenever you give something into launder, you should always measure your beged when you give it in, and you should measure it when you take it out, when you retrieve it from the dry cleaner. The Tuffy, if you find that your beged is larger than it was when you gave it in, afsede de masche, it means he damaged your beged, he stretched it. The butzer, and if your item came back smaller than the way you sent it in, afsede, again the dry cleaner damaged it. The kafsa, he made it shrink. Rashi says he probably washed it in water that was too hot and caused it to shrink. So when you give clothing into a dry cleaner, you need to beware and make sure that he didn't damage your clothing. So measure it on the way in and measure it on the way out. Zok Tehillah Gemara Vayter. V'shavin Elu ve'elu shetoyanin. They both agree that you're allowed to load up beams on top of the grapes and the olives, so that the olives will continue to ooze out their juices all Shabbos long. Zok Gemara Ma'ishna Kulhu the Gazri Behu Beishamai. Why is it that all the other cases in the Mishnah Beishamai held you were not allowed to have your kalim continue do a malacha for you on Shabbos? Umayishna Karis Beisabadi Gulei Hagas the Loi Gazru. Why is it that Beishamai said in this case it's not a problem? Zok Gemara Hanech the Avad Luhu B'Shabbos Mechayev Chatos. All the other cases in the Mishnah where if you did that on Shabbos, if you put clothing into a pot on Shabbos, if you put pishton into a pot on Shabbos to heat up and to whiten, you'd be chayiv chatas. Therefore, Gazri Behu Beishamai Erev Shabbos and Chashecha. Therefore, Beishamai says that you're not allowed to do it Friday either. But Kairos Beis Abad, the Gulei Agas, the last case of the Mishnah, the Avadu B'Shabbos, even if you loaded it up on Shabbos, Lo Mechayev Chatas, it would not be a deraisa. Therefore, like Gazru, they didn't stop you from setting it up on Erev Shabbos. Zok to Gemara, Montana. So you've just made a very clear assumption that loading up these olives and these grapes, even on Shabbos, would not be a deraisa. So now we need to know why not. Montana, the Chomidi de Asim Amela Shapradan. Who is the Tana that holds that since these pears anyway were broken already, the skins were broken, and because of that, even if we don't press them, their juices will slowly ooze out of them anyway. And because of that, it's not called a malacha. Who is the Tana who buys into that shita? Omer Yosy, Rechanina, Rabbi Shmuel. The Tana that we're following is Rabbi Shmuel. He holds once the skin is broken, the juice would come out by itself. And since the juice would come out by itself, you're allowed to actually put boards on to hasten the juice coming out. The Tanan, Hashum, garlic, Baboiser are very unripened, premature grapes that give out a very tart type of juice that I think Rashi tells us is used l'tavel by basar. It's just used as a condiment. Or v'hamalilois. Malilois are again small wheat kernels that didn't fully ripen at all, and when you crush them, the juice that comes out of them again can be used as some type of condiment. Shiriston, you crushed them a little bit. Miboijoim, when it was still Friday before Shabbos. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Yigmar Mishetechshach. You're allowed to continue to press them to pull out more juice on Shabbos. So we're comparing our grapes and our olives to the Shum, Boiser, and Melilois. Since they were crushed already before Shabbos, we allow you to leave the weight on them to continue to extract juice from them on Shabbos. Rabbi Kiva says, Lo Yigmar. You should not allow them to continue to give off their juices over Shabbos. Rashi's Lo Yigmar. Also, La Nichem Eboijoim Tachas Kaivdan. You're not allowed to set them up under a weight right before Shabbos. Kedei Ligmar Mishetechshach. So that on Shabbos, more juice should continue to be extracted from those pears. So that's the Reb Yosy B'Chanina said that the Tana of our Mishnah, who was saying that even according to B'Shammai, you're allowed to let the olives and grapes continue to be weighed down and force more juice out of them. That's following the Shita of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Lazar Omer, the Amoira, Rabbi Lazar says that the Tana of our Mishnah is Rabbi Lazar. It's Rabbi Lazar. So Rashi tells us who the different Rabbi Lazars was. So Rabbi Lazar, the Amoira, was Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. And the Rabbi Lazar, the Tana that we're talking about, is Rabbi Lazar ben Shemua. So Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas is telling us that the Tana of our Mishnah is Rabbi Lazar ben Shemua. What is the Shita of Rabbi Lazar ben Shemua? It's none. Chalish devash sheriskan be'erev Shabbos. So we all know, how does a beehive work? If you open up a beehive, there's what's called honeycombs. There's a series of honeycombs in the hive. And the honeycombs have a whole bunch of those little honeycomb shapes that have honey inside them. And if you take out one full comb from the hive and you crush it, the honey is going to start to ooze out. So chalas devash sheriskan be'erev Shabbos. So you crushed the honeycomb. It's made out of beeswax. You just crush it. So now the honey is going to start escaping and oozing out of the little cells. The yotzu ma'atzman, and now the honey is oozing out on its own. Also, you're not allowed to set it up that way to operate over Shabbos because it's a malach on Shabbos. You're setting up that you should be extracting the honey from the honeycomb on Shabbos. But Rebbe Lazar, who's the Tana that we're looking for, matter. He allows it. Once the honeycomb is crushed, we say that the honey is already released, and therefore you're allowed to continue pressuring it over Shabbos to allow more honey to come out and to capture that honey. So we have Umachloikis, Amiroim. Rabbi Eliezer holds that the Tana of our Mishnah is Rabbi Lazar, and Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina held that the Tana of our Mishnah is Reb Shimon. The question is, why did one Amoira pick Rabbi Lazar, and why did the other Amoira pick Reb Shimon? So Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina, my time aloi Omer Rabbi Lazar. Why did Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina say that our Mishnah is going according to Reb Shimon? Why didn't he say it's going according to Rabbi Lazar? We found Rabbi Lazar with the honey. Would also support our Mishnah. Omer Loch. The reason why Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina didn't want to rely on this Rabbi Lazar is
yes, you mean Rabbi Shmuel, not Rabbi Shimon.
I'm sorry, you're right, Rabbi Shmuel. That's correct. I'm mixing up my names. That's right. So what Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina said that our Mishnah, the Tana of our Mishnah, is Rabbi Shmuel. Why didn't he say that the Tana of our Mishnah is Rabbi Eliezer also? Because of the honey, the example of the honey. Omer Loch, he could tell you, Hasam who the Meikar Eichel, Ulubsayf Eichel. The honey does not change status when it comes out of the hive. And it's actually Lav Dafka, the Rishonim tell us. It's really Meikar Mashka, Ulubsayf Mashka, because honey is considered one of the 7 mashka. So the honey, before Shabbos, it was already considered separated from the hive, and it had a status of a mashka. And as it comes out, more and more, it retains its status of a mashka. So since it's not changing its status from oichel tamashka throughout this entire process, that's why Rabbi Lozer allowed you to continue pressing those honeycombs from the hive. But hach in our Mishnah, when you have grapes or olives with their juice, meker oichel. Just because it's a little crushed before Shabbos, I still consider that the juice still remains part of the fruit. And while the juice is part of the fruit, it's considered an oichel because the fruit is an oichel. But the hashtamashka, but as you press it to suck out or to squeeze out the juice so that it should run out of the fruit, then you're actually changing. That's when the transition occurs from oichel to mashka, when you're squeezing it out. So just because Rabbi Elazar holds that by honey, which is already considered extracted before Shabbos, so it's already in the status of a mashka before Shabbos, and it's not changing status on Shabbos, just because Rabbi Elazar said that's allowed, who said he would also allow the case of our Mishnah when really you're changing the status of this juice from oichel to mashka, because I still consider the juice inside the olive and inside the grape as an oichel until it's fully separated from the grape. That's why I didn't want to rely on Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar Amalach, the Amoy Rabbi Elazar, who did feel that the Tana Rabbi Elazar would support our Mishnah, he says, I happen to know that my Rabbi Elazar holds that even in the case of the fruits, he would allow it. Where did I know that? Because Hashmini Rabbi Elazar, there's another brisa that Rabbi Elazar said something, an expression about. Now, Filu Zeisim Vanovim Nami Shari. I know that Rabbi Elazar specifically agrees that even by Zeisim and Anovim, which is our case in our Mishnah, he would also agree that it's allowed there. Taki Aser Apoishia Menardo. When Apoishia came from Nardo, also he came, and he brought with him a brisa that he quoted. And what was the brisa? Zeisim Vanovim Shariska Me'erev Shabbos. If you have olives or grapes that the skins were crushed Erev Shabbos, the Yatsu Me'atzmon, and then juice came out by itself on Shabbos, Asurim, that would be Asur. But Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon Matirin. Rabbi Elazar and Reb Shimon are Matir. So you see Rabbi Elazar not only expressed his halacha in the case of honeycombs, but he also expressed his halacha specifically in our case of our Mishnah by Zeisim and Anofim. So that's why Rabbi Elazar feels that he has strong support that his Rabbi Elazar can be the Tan of our Mishnah. So what about Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina? You see that Rabbi Elazar, in fact, is very, very parallel to our Mishnah. So why didn't he say Rabbi Elazar? So Timar B'rai Shelo Shmielei. Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina heard of the first Mishnah that talked about honeycombs, and from honeycombs he felt there was no right to our Mishnah. From the Brisa, indeed there is a right to our Mishnah, but Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina never heard about that Brisa, and that's the reason why he could not attribute our Mishnah to Rabbi Elazar. But technically, now that we know the Brisa, even Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina might agree that our Mishnah would be consistent with Rabbi Elazar. Now, Rabbi Elazar, my time Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina. Why didn't Rabbi Elazar want to say that our Mishnah is going according to Rabbi Shmuel? I just want to make sure I'm not mixing up the name again. Yeah, why didn't Rabbi Elazar want to say that our Mishnah might be following the Shita of Rabbi Shmuel? My time Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina. Omer loch, lav itmer Allah, Omer Rabbi bar Chanina, Omer Rabbi Yochanan. Didn't Rabbi in the name of Rabbi bar Chanina say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan to clarify that the mechusar and dicha, there's three levels of crushing. There's risik, which is the first level of crush where you crack the skin of the pears. Then there's further crushing the grapes, and then there's mashing them completely. So there's three levels of how the grapes or the olives are going to be crushed to extract the liquid. And the question is, at what point do we say that the mashka is separated from the oichel? Because once the mashka is separated from the oichel, then we have no problem letting this activity continue on Shabbos. But the question is, at what point is it that the mashka is now separated from the fruit? So this is what Rabbi Yochanan said. If you merely crack the shell of the fruits, but you haven't crushed them yet, then everybody would agree that that would be usher. Because at that point, Rabbi Yochanan learns that all the Tanoim agree that it's not considered that the mashke is already removed from the peri. It's still an oichel, and that would be an isser. He pligi, the machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva is b'mechusarin schika. If it wasn't mashed yet, and when it wasn't mashed yet, meaning it went through the first level of crushing where the skin broke, then it got pounded a little bit, so it's further crushed, and we're pushing the mashke out a little more, but we haven't fully mashed them yet. So when it's in that state, only there is there a machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. But the Haninami kemichusarin dichadamin. But in our Mishnah, maybe we're speaking about Paris that although the skin were broken, that's all that happened. And it's possible that both Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva would both prohibit that to be done. And that's why I didn't want to say that the Mishnah is going according to Rabbi Shmuel, because I wasn't sure if these Paris were far along in its smashing process to be allowed to let it continue over Shabbos. And that's why I felt safe putting it according to Rabbi Lozer. Zok the Gemara, Hoyer Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina paskin like Rabbi Shmuel, meaning that once the skins are crushed a little bit, you're allowed to, because Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina learned that once the skins are somewhat crushed, that Rabbi Shmuel at that point holds, you're allowed to put weight on it and let the mashka continue to come out over Shabbos, and that's how Rabbi Yosy B'Chanina paskin that you're allowed to do that. Okay, that's the end of this sugya. Now we're up to a new sugya that's a shaila of muksa. Now, once we were discussing things that go on in a press, the Gemara decides to discuss other halachas relevant to a press that have nothing to do with pressing and squeezing out liquids. Shemen shel badadin. Now, when you set up a press, so you're squeezing the olives, and all the oil runs down into the barrel that captures the product of your press. It captures the liquid, but it's inevitable that there'll be little corners of the press where some oil will gather that don't drain down into the pit. What do they do with that oil? That oil was given as a bonus to the people operating the press. So that oil was called shemen shel badon. The oil that were on the corners of the press were oil that was given to the badodim, to the people that worked there. So that oil, or machzala shel badon, when the olives were in the press, they would cover it with some type of mat. They were mats that were only designed to cover up the fruit that were sitting in the press. So the oil in the corners and the mats, are they muksa on Shabbos? Rav Aser, Rav holds they're muksa on Shabbos. Ushmul Shari, and Shmuel holds they're not muksa on Shabbos. Now Rashi tells us, Rav Aser l'toltuli mishum muksa, the Rav Sovar Kirab Yehuda b'muksa, the Shmuel Sovar Kirab Shimon the Leslie muksa. Now there's a big machlokes all across Hilchos Muksa between Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon. Everybody holds as a din muksa. Nobody disagrees with the concept of muksa. However, Reb Shimon is very, very makel in Hilchos of muksa, and we'll see the different halachas where Reb Shimon is strongly makel over Rabbi Yehuda, and because of that, the way the Gemara describes Reb Shimon's shita is that he doesn't hold of muksa at all. It's not that he doesn't hold of muksa at all; he's just very makel on muksa. So this mat or this oil that's payment for the services of the pressers, Rav holds that they're going to be muksa on Shabbos, and Shmuel says they're not going to be muksa on Shabbos because Shmuel holds that the shita of Reb Shimon, who's very makel when it comes to Hilchos Muksa. Hani karche dezuzi. Karche dezuzi, Rashi says, it's also it's a set of mats. It was a mat that would come in sets, and it was used to cover over the products that you'd have in the hold of a ship. So if you had products that were being shipped in the hold of a ship, they would cover it over with a certain mat. Rav Aser, Rav held they were muktzah, and Shmuel holds Shari, Shmuel holds they were not muktzah. Again, there's a machlokes whether or not these items are muktzah. Omer Rab Nachman, Eiz lechalpa. What happens? Now we know on Yom Tov, if you have an animal, you're allowed to shechta to eat. But what if on Yom Tov you had a goat, and this goat that you had, you weren't planning to shecht, you were planning to use it for its milk. So Erev Yom Tov, Bein Shemashis, as Yom Tov was coming in, this animal was designated not to be shechted, not to be a food, rather to be a source of milk. Or you had a sheep that you were not planning to shecht, you were using it because it was producing beautiful wool, and that's what it was intended to be used for. Or with Tanagolos Lebeitzah. So you had a Tanagolos that was laying eggs. Again, you were not planning on shechting that chicken, you were planning on keeping it to produce more eggs. Or Vituri de Ridaya, or you had oxen that you were going to be using to plow. They were good trained oxen. Or Tamari de Iska, or you had dates that you were not planning to eat, you were actually planning to sell them. So they were being preserved to be able to be sold. So are these things muksa? If I decide on Yom Tov that I want to shech them now, or I want to eat them now, would I be allowed to? Rav holds it's asur again because he says they're muksa. The Shmuel Amar Mutter, Shmuel said they're mutter, they're not muksa. The kamifically beplukta they're Reb Yehuda of Reb Shimon. And Rav and Shmuel are arguing in the same machlokes as Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon whether or not they're stringent when it comes to hilchos muksa, or whether or not they're lax when it comes to hilchos muksa, which is the machlokes of Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon. Hahu talmida, the uri bechar to the argis, Reb Shimon. There was a Talmud who paskined a shaila in a city called Char to the argis, and it was a question of muksa, and he paskined like Reb Shimon, and Reb Shimon is very mekel when it comes to hilchos muksa. Shamte Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna put this Talmud to Chaim. Who do you think you are, paskening like Reb Shimon? In fact, the Gemara of Reb Shimon's fearlove. But don't we pasken like Reb Shimon? So why did this Talmud do something wrong? He pasken like Reb Shimon, and it seems like we pasken like Reb Shimon. So the Gemara, because Ba'asri de Rav Hapa, this city of Char to the Argis was in the neighborhood that was under Rav's jurisdiction, and we know Rav paskens like Rabbi Yehuda l'chumra when it comes to muksa. So this Talmud had no right to pasken l'kula on hilchos muksa in Rav's very jurisdiction. Therefore, this Talmud should never have overreached and paskened against Rav in his very own neighborhood. Hani Trey Talmidim. There were two Talmidim that had a situation where their house went on fire, and they wanted to salvage, they wanted to save stuff from inside their house. Now the halacha is, you're very limited as to what you're allowed to salvage from a burning house, even though if you're taking it out of the burning house and you're taking it into your chutzner, you're not going from Rishus HaRabban to Rishus HaYachid or vice versa. You're staying in the same Rishus HaYachid. They're still very limited as to what you're allowed to move around. And the reason for it is we're afraid if we give you unlimited, unbridled ability to save anything, we're afraid you'll actually put the fire out. And that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. So there are two Talmidim that tried to save a lot of stuff. Chad matzil b'chad mana. One took one big basket and filled up tons and tons of food inside that basket and took it out. The chad matzil ba'arbe b'chamish mani. And another one of the Talmidim used multiple kalim. He piled them all up and he filled all them up and he took them out that way. The comivically beflukta the Rabbi Bar Zavda Berafuna. And in fact, they were arguing. One was passing like Rabbi Bar Zavda, and one was passing like Rav Huna. So to explain this, I'll have to tell you the whole story. There's two Mishnayos at the end of the Masechta that discuss what you're allowed to salvage in the event of a fire. One Mishnah says you're allowed to salvage enough for 3 sudos. And one Mishnah says you're allowed to salvage even enough for 100 sudos. So it's a steer in Mishnayos. So Rabbi Bar Zavda tried to be mitaris to steer in the Mishnayos, and Rav Huna was mitaris to steer in the Mishnayos. Rabbi Bar Zavda said that the difference between the two Mishnayos are the Mishnah that says you're only allowed to save up to 3 sudas is talking about if you're using multiple kalim. If you're using multiple kalim to salvage the food, then you could only take for 3 sudas. But if you have one keli, you could fit in as many sudas as you want. So that explains what one of the Talmidim did. Chad matzah b'chad mana. One of the Talmidim took one keli and put in 100 sudas into it, following the answer that the Rabbi Bar Zabda offered to the steer in the Mishnayos. Rav Huna had another teretz to the steer in Mishnayos. He said that it all depends on where you're carrying this food to. If you carry it into its own chutzner, then you're allowed to take even 100 sudas. If you're carrying it into a neighboring chutzner, then you can only take 3 sudas. So the other Tana took as many sudas as he want, and he just stuck to the same chutzner. So basically, you have 2 Talmidim that each one followed the explanation of the Mishnayos from a different Amoira, either Rabbi Bar Zabda or Funa, and they each did their own thing to salvage the food that was going to otherwise burn in the fire. So again, the reason why this is relevant here is we're talking about Talmidim that are arbitrarily selecting who they want to paskin like without any specific guidance. I guess we could stop here.
Yosy.
The biggest,
I want to say 2 things.
Sorry.
First
Is that
of all,
Shmuel? Do I hear Shmuel?
Yeah. I want to say 2 things. Today is Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky's yard site.
That's right. He died 2 weeks after my father.
Also, Chaim Weinberger asked me to use his name, especially pertinent to people who live in our area, not to go to Humber Hospital. If Chas v'shalom anyone needs a hospital, any relatives need a hospital, to stay far away from Humber. He told me to say it over his name. He told me it's a horrible hospital, and he said that there is someone who is there now, who was there, that had to be moved to another hospital and have surgery because of what happened to him at Humber. He told me it's a mitzvah to be mefarsim, and I should be mefarsim in his name.
What happened to him at Humber?
I don't know.
I was screaming that for a long time already. That Humber is it's mamish like a death trap in there.
It's a worse hospital. He said, I don't care if it's new, it's state of the art. It's the horrible. These are his words. He told me he called me last night specifically for that purpose. So
I ended up at the old Humber, and that's why this finger never healed properly.
No, I'm serious. But the problem is Chas v'shalom, there's an emergency. They don't. The ambulances will not go to other hospitals. You have to figure out a way around that.
I want you to know, my mother was there, and she wasn't there for long. And literally from one day to the next, I was shocked when I called to see how she was doing, and she was nifter. So I can't say they did anything or anything like that, but you say
Chaim has a pretty good pulse. Chaim has a pretty good pulse on these things. He wouldn't just call me up. He got better things to do with his time than call me up on a Monday night to tell me stay out of Humber.
Did he have an eitzah for how not to end up in Humber?
I think the best thing is try and drive yourself there. Yesterday they took Aaron Levin to the hospital. I'm not even sure where he is. I hope he's not in Humber.
Oh wow! All right, shkoyach.
Okay, everybody. You must
have a good day.
Yosy, on a lighter note, I just wanted to say that the biggest diak from today's Gemara is that if Abaye can wear colored shirts, so can I.
Good. Excellent.
So I just want to remind everybody, today's share was Lil Nishmas Reb Moshe ben Chaim Zolti, Leah Sima Bas Ruvain, whose Yorchas today Chavtas Adar, and now Shmuel tells us that also.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I'm going to sponsor the oranges one Shabbos when we're back in business.
Okay. We should be zeicher that all of these niftarim should be mailed to Yosher for us here, and we should have a Yeshua B'kar Mamish. We should be able to have a beautiful.
Amen. Shkoyach, Yosy.
Have a good day, everybody.
Good day.
What time is Nate's?
I think I'm not even sure. I think 7:12.
1 second. I'll tell you.
It was 12 yesterday.